Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, September 13th. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The army is denying reports out of Damascus that the Syrian army downed an Israeli plane and drone over Quneitra inside Syria before dawn this morning. Shortly after midnight, the Israeli Air Force targeted Syrian army artillery batteries hours after a mortar shell exploded inside Israel in the Golan Heights. While no damage or injuries were reported, it is the third such incident since the weekend in which errant mortar fire out of Syria explodes inside Israel. During the retaliatory operation, the Syrian army fired 2 surface-to-air missiles at the Israeli aircraft, but missed them, an IDF spokeswoman told IBA News, adding the aircraft returned home safely. The army emphasized that it holds the Syrian regime responsible for the errant fire and will not tolerate any attempt to undermine Israel's sovereignty or the security of its citizens. On the other side of the border inside Syria, a nationwide ceasefire that went into effect after sundown last night so far appears to be holding. IBA's Margot Dudkevich reports.
This morning, the major conflict zones inside Syria were reportedly quiet, with reports of sporadic fire conducted by Syrian regime and rebel forces in the country's southwest. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said no civilian deaths were recorded in the first 15 hours after the US-Russian brokered truce went into effect. The Syrian army said the ceasefire would be observed for 7 days, but added it reserves the right to respond to any violation by armed groups. Rebel factions operating in the country welcomed the ceasefire with caution, expressing reservations about its implementation. In Washington and Moscow, officials commended the developments.
The earliest reports are that there's some reduction in violence, as well as a few reports of fighting here and there, though it is far too early to draw any definitive conclusions.
Sergei Rodosky, head of the Russian General Staff, said at a press conference last night his country has established coordination centers inside Syria to ensure the ceasefire is adhered to by the regime forces. Already more than 1,000 tons of humanitarian aid has reached the civilian population, he said. In Damascus, residents expressed hope that the lull in violence would continue. Some expressed cautious optimism that the US-Russian deal would lead to calm, but noted that all former attempts to reach a ceasefire in the past failed. In the 5 years of conflict, over 500,000 people have been killed and millions injured and displaced. The deal aims at putting an end to fighting and moving towards a political transition inside the country. However, the truce does not apply to the Islamic State and Jabhat Fatah al-Sham, formerly known as the Nusra Front. If calm prevails for 7 days, the United States and Russia will coordinate airstrikes against the jihadi groups. And Moscow has agreed to ensure Syrian government warplanes refrain from targeting the opposition areas. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Dr. Harold Rode worked as a Middle East analyst for the U.S. Defense Department for nearly 3 decades. IBA's diplomatic correspondent Kalev Ben-David asked Rode if he sees the Obama administration's efforts to reach a Syria deal with Russia as part of an overall strategy to disengage from the region.
Retreat, it's not disengagement, it's fleeing. And in the Middle East, the moment that you flee, you're showing weakness. And when Middle Easterners see weakness, they pounce.
So let's take an example. The United States recently reached agreement with the Soviet Union, with Russia, on a Syria ceasefire agreement. What's your view of that deal?
Oh, it's the latest deal that they've made. I saw today Secretary of State Kerry glorifying talk about it. It's not the first time he's done it, and I'm sure it won't be the last. Middle Easterners, written agreements are useless. People care about what you do, not what you say. Signatures on documents don't matter.
And yet military action that's been taken by the United States in the Middle East has backfired. I mean, we saw that in Iraq.
Really?
How would you assess the U.S. involvement in Iraq?
Well, you mean after we fled from Iraq, when Obama simply fled prematurely and took forces out? It's worse, and it's worse than what you even ask. Many of the sorties, military sorties that go right now to attack ISIS, come back they're not dropping bombs. The reason they're not is a part of the rules of engagement say that if there is even the slightest question that a civilian could be wounded, then you can't drop the bombs. That's an impossible situation for the military. And it certainly guarantees that you can't defeat ISIS.
Mm-hmm. But Dr. Rowe, do you think that the American public has the stomach for more aggressive military action in the Middle East, in places like Syria?
The American public has the stomach for victory, not for all sorts of games which are going on right now.
Mm-hmm. I want to turn to another subject, which is Turkey, which is one of your areas of expertise. Israel recently concluded a reconciliation agreement with Turkey. A part of that is building a gas pipeline, or looking into the potential to build a gas pipeline with Turkey, which will involve Israel more certainly in the Turkish economy and closer links between the governments. Looking forward in Turkey, how do you see the situation? How should Israel deal with the events there?
This was an agreement, as far as I'm concerned, which had economic concerns, and that is it. The government of Turkey, the present government of Turkey, hates Israel, hates Jews. And that doesn't mean you can't make an economic agreement with them. Erdogan has a history of not liking Israel. He says the most awful things about Jews and about the most awful things about Israel. Yet at the same time, during Erdogan's time as prime minister and now president, the trade with Israel has gone way up. So you explain it.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to the U.S. now. We're in the middle of a U.S. election with two candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. The Middle East and how to deal with ISIS has certainly been one of the major issues in their campaign. I mean, how do you feel about, without necessarily giving a recommendation, which you could, but about either of the candidates' ability to deal with unfolding events in the Middle East?
Well, all I can tell you is that Hillary Clinton represents the political establishment of the United States. That's the Democrats, the Republicans, and the neocons. They have failed the American people. They have failed here in the Middle East. What Mr. Trump says is that he will stand by America's friends and America's allies. In the last few days, Mr. Trump has said that if the Iranians so dare as to attack or come close to any of the American ships in the Persian Gulf, they will suffer the consequences. Now, just because he said it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But that in the Middle East, people are looking for action. What are you going to do? Not what you say.
Alor Azaria, the soldier currently standing trial for allegedly shooting a neutralized terrorist in the head in Hebron earlier this year, is entitled to receive our full support, Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman said, while addressing students at the Ariel University in Samaria yesterday. The media, politicians, and public figures should remember that a person is innocent until proven otherwise. Azaria is entitled to everyone's support, even if he made a mistake. My call in large to the public and politicians is to not convict him in advance, the defense minister said, adding one must take into account the fact that the young soldiers are sent by the state to operate under pressure in a hostile environment. The army and politics must be kept separate, he said. Lieberman also referred to the pending evacuation of Amunah, emphasizing that the houses were built on private Palestinian land and the high court ruling must be upheld. At the same time, he said the same law must apply also to Palestinians, whether in Susia or E1. We are a nation based on law, and we will honor court decisions under all circumstances, the defense minister said. Police have arrested a 25-year-old resident of Upper Nazareth, suspected of threatening to assassinate Prime Minister Netanyahu. The Prime Minister's office reported the death threat to police earlier this month. The Nazareth Magistrates Court today extended his remand by 2 days. Palestinians threw stones and rocks at two female soldiers who accidentally entered the West Bank city of Tulkarem last night in their military vehicle while using the GPS application Waze. On realizing their mistake, the soldiers immediately alerted Israeli authorities to their plight. Palestinian police assisted the two soldiers, who were lightly injured, accompanying them to the Einav checkpoint after coordinating with Israel police and civil administration officials. This is not the first such incident where Waze has directed Israelis into Palestinian areas. In March this year, 2 soldiers from the Oketz unit were attacked after accidentally entering the Kalandia refugee camp north of Jerusalem. The 2 abandoned their vehicle, split up, and sought cover. Palestinians set fire to the vehicle. A large number of security forces entered the camp to extricate the 2 soldiers while engaging in gun battles with armed Palestinians. Israel and the Palestinian Authority are set to sign an agreement that will resolve the dispute over the Palestinians' enormous debt to the Israel Electric Corporation. Local media reports said the agreement will lead to the erasing of hundreds of millions of shekels of debt. Currently, the PA owes some 2 billion shekels to Israel. Once signed, the PA will immediately fork out approximately 500 million shekels to the IEC and will commit to paying an additional billion shekels in installments, with the remaining 500 million being erased. The deal will require the Palestinian Authority to set up a mechanism for collecting payment from its customers in the West Bank. In April and May this year, Israel began scaling back the electricity flow to the West Bank cities due to the failure of the PA to pay the mounting debt. Jewish studies are more important than secular ones. That's the latest from Education Minister Naftali Bennett. After launching a massive public relations campaign encouraging high school students to take the high-level 5-point matriculation exam in mathematics, the Education Minister now says that learning Jewish studies is more important than learning the sciences. Bennett made the remarks last night at a conference hosted by the Tali Education Fund, which provides a pluralistic Jewish program to public schools. His remarks come on the heels of a recent controversy that erupted over a government decision to drop its demands that ultra-Orthodox schools teach science, math, and other core subjects in order to receive increased state funding. Bennett first opposed the move, but later caved into coalition pressures. The court today rejected a request by police to extend the remand of Netanya Mayor Miriam Feyerberg and instead ordered she be confined to house arrest until the end of the month. Feyerberg was also barred from entering the municipality building for 55 days. The Netanya mayor is suspected of taking millions of shekels in bribes in exchange for advancing a series of real estate projects in the city. Since her arrest last week, she has adamantly denied all charges of wrongdoing. At this morning's hearing, police told the court they fear she may try to hamper the investigation if released. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton insists she is feeling fine and getting better. In her first public comments since a Sunday health scare, which launched speculation regarding her general health condition, Clinton said she never lost consciousness and didn't think her pneumonia was significant enough to disclose in advance. She was speaking in a phone interview with CNN.
Why not just say on Friday, as you said apparently to Senator Schumer on Sunday, I have pneumonia, folks. I'm going to power through it. Why keep it a secret?
Well, I just didn't think it was going to be that big a deal. I know Chuck said today he didn't tell anybody. It's just the kind of thing that if it happens to you and you're a busy, active person, you keep moving forward.
Good news now. Israel won its second medal at the Rio Paralympic Games, with sharpshooter Doron Shaziri bringing home the bronze in the 50-meter three-positions rifle shooting competition. The 49-year-old Shaziri is considered one of the Israeli delegation's veteran athletes and is one of the world's top competitors in this field. He has previously won 7 Paralympic medals. In the past, Shaziri served as a sharpshooter in the IDF's Golani Brigade and completed a sniper's course with honors. In 1987, during an army operation, he walked on a landmine near the infamous Beaufort Castle in southern Lebanon and lost a leg from the knee down. He later founded a business to distribute wheelchairs to soldiers. Shaziri's victory came one day after Israeli rower Moran Samuel won a bronze medal in the 1,000-meter single rowing competition. And it was an electrifying night at Tel Aviv's Hayarkon Park last night as an estimated 60,000 fans gathered for the highly anticipated Queen concert featuring Adam Lambert as lead singer. Our own in-house staff who attended the show says that while it's hard to compare to the band's original iconic frontman Freddie Mercury, who passed away in 1991, the group gave an impressive performance which included exciting tributes. Alongside a tremendous stage presence, Lambert delighted the crowd with a couple of sentences in Hebrew, and the band even threw in its personal adaptation of Hava Nagila. The show, which lasted well over 2 hours, drew in a huge crowd of people from all walks of life and, surprisingly, all age groups. In local money matters, shares were up on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange while the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers. Turning to the forecast, and the IBA weather team is predicting no significant change in temperatures over the next several days. Here are the highs and lows. And that's all for this newscast. Please join us again tomorrow, same time, same channel. I'm Laura Cornfield, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem. We leave you now with more pictures from the Queen concert last night.